Well, welcome to the final round of 3 Minute Thesis. My name is Michael Dalaval. I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Education, and I'll be your MC today. Today, you're going to see five amazing doctoral students presenting their research, taking their thousands of hours and thousands and tens of thousands of words and trying to put it all down, whittle it down to a 3 minute speech. It's not an easy task, and I just admire them for being here and having the courage to do this in front of a lot of people. So I'm excited to get started, but before we do, I would like to introduce a distinguished member of the CHD community. To start us out, we have Tabitha Greer-Reed, who's the assistant, I'm sorry, not assistant, she is the associate chair of graduate education.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to CHD's 3-Minute Thesis Competition, sponsored by the Office for Graduate Education and Faculty Development, where, as Michael mentioned, I'm Dr. Tabitha Greer-Reed, the Associate Dean for Graduate Education and Faculty Development. And I want to start by taking time to thank our graduate education staff, Michael Dalaval, who you see here today, and Shay Mua for their leadership, creativity, and hard work. They've organized and overseen all aspects of this competition over the past few months leading up to this event, which is a great and important one for our college. So thank you. I also want to acknowledge and appreciate Dr. Frank Simons, Associate Dean for Research and Policy, and Ellen Freeman, Assistant Director of the Office for Research and Policy, for their coordinated efforts to arrange the 3-Minute Thesis competition in concert with our CHD Research Day. So I believe this collaboration leads to a richer experience for us all as we highlight and celebrate the intellectual curiosity and research projects of our students. And I hope that you'll all take time to participate in Research Day after you compete and take a break after the 3-Minute Thesis. It'll be in person, yay, in McNamara Hall. So at this point, I will now turn it over to the president of Grads Ed, someone I know very well. I'm very proud to be his faculty advisor, Miguel Quinones, who's also completing his thesis. We've been in the thick of it, and he is on track to graduate, doing very important work. I won't say more about that, but what I will do is introduce Miguel. Take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Greer-Reed.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. Echo the same sentiments as people before me that I'm really excited to have you all here today. Today, we're going to be meeting student scholars who have spent weeks, months, even years working on the research projects that we're going to be hearing about in just a moment. And if you're here to learn about the details of the research process, like the methodology, the theoretical framework, the complex words we can't quite pronounce, well, you'll be disappointed because instead, we're going to challenge these students to communicate the value of their research in just 3 minutes. No geek speak, no jargon, no nonsense. Just one speaker, one slide, and 3 minutes to articulate what their thesis is and why it matters. Before we begin, I want to start with a few introductions. First, my name is Miguel Quinones, and I'm happy to be here. I'm currently a graduate student in the Department of Family Social Science here in the college, and I'm also the current president of the student group called Graduate Students in Education and Human Development, or GradSed. GradSed exists to support our graduate students' social, academic, and professional development. And this past year, we've hosted in-person and online events to support our students' social needs. And we've also provided funding for our students' research and professional development goals. I know that CHD's graduate students are doing incredible work, and they're also incredible people. So I'm very, very excited to be here today and see what some of our students have been working on. With that being said, I want to now introduce the 3 spectacular individuals who have offered to help judge this year's 3-minute thesis competition. So first up, I'd like to introduce Mitchell Trockman, who is a Minneapolis native and recipient of 3 U of M degrees in elementary education, secondary education, and educational administration. He's worked for Minneapolis Public Schools for over 50 years in various capacities, starting as a 4th grade teacher and winding his way up as the superintendent of schools several times. Mitch and his wife, Dr. Rachel Trockman, have traveled to over 107 countries across the globe. And today, they are loving parents to 3 sons, have 5 grandchildren, and a very colorful parrot. Next, I'd like to introduce Frederick Estes, who has been the president of Estes Enterprises since 2004. The entrepreneur bug bit Mr. Estes at a very early age as he watched his parents own and operate various Hallmark greeting card stores dating back to 1973. Since then, the Estes family has successfully owned and operated various news and convenience stores across the Twin Cities and various international airports in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Tampa, Florida. This upcoming June, the Estes family will celebrate 35 years in business at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport and 49 years in the state of Minnesota. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce Dr. Ana Kuiper Marquez, who currently serves as the Associate Director and Assistant Teaching Professor of the Institute for the Study of Adult Literacy and the Goodling Institute for Research in Family Literacy in the College of Education at Pennsylvania State University. Dr. Kuiper Marquez is a University of Minnesota alum, and back in 2016, she was the 3-minute thesis runner-up in the CEHD competition and the first place winner at the larger University of Minnesota Graduate School Consortium. Then in 2017, she was a 3-minute thesis 3rd place winner at the Comparative and International Education Society Conference and the People's Choice winner at the Midwestern Association of Graduate Schools. So I'm very excited to have you all here. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Michael Delaval, who's going to give us the next details.
Okay. Thank you so much, Miguel and Tabitha. I really appreciate it. So before we get started, I just want to go over some of the rules. Now, the participants of this are so sick of hearing about these rules, but I figure we should be on the same page. So the big thing to know is that these presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Any presenter that exceeds that time limit is automatically disqualified. Luckily, they've made it here already, so they know this. I'm hoping that that won't happen again because when it gets close, people tend to have a heart attack. We don't want that today, so that's I think we'll be okay. Presentations are spoken word, so no poems, raps, or songs. That's never happened either, but I will say if somebody decides to break into song today, I won't be that upset. I think it'd be amazing, but they would unfortunately be disqualified. No props are permitted, no additional electronic media, and then a single static PowerPoint slide is permitted. Okay, so here's how the format will work. It's the slide is going to be shown before the presenter starts speaking. Then once the presenter starts speaking, the timer will start. We'll remove the slide at that point, and then after they speak, we'll put the slide back up. Shay Mua is our official timekeeper. He will begin the timer as soon as the presenter starts speaking. After the presentation is finished, judges will have about 1 to 2 minutes to score the presentation. After everyone is presented, we will take a 5 to 10 minute break so the judges can discuss the presentation and determine a winner. And the cool thing is you all get to vote for the People's Choice Award. So we will have a poll after everyone has done their presentation, and you'll get to vote. You get to vote for the best presentation or the person you came to see, whichever. It's okay. Basically, that's why we tell them bring a lot of people. So they can hopefully get something. Even if they might not win, they can win something. After each presentation, feel free to unmute yourself and whoop and holler and cheer, whatever you want to do, but then please mute yourself again, okay? But we want to make this feel as close to a live in-person event as possible. I know that's hard with the limitations of Zoom, but we're going to try to do our best anyway, okay? So I think we're ready to get started. Our first presenter from the Department of Organizational Leadership Policy and Development is Tiffany Lachelle Smith.
The Black educator is an endangered species and is at risk of being eliminated from the school systems of this country. Now, when Educational Director Beverly Cole made this prediction, she was aware that in 1950, nearly half of all Black professionals in the U.S. were teachers, compared to a quarter of white teachers. And today her prediction rings true, seeing that of the 3.8 million teachers in the entire profession, Black teachers only account for 250,000. So how did there come to be so few Black educators? Some scholars attribute their decline to education policy. They argue that the unintended consequence of Brown v. Board of Education was the wholesale dismissal of thousands of Black teachers. Between the years of 1954 to 1972, over 70,000 Black teachers and administrators lost their jobs because as segregated schools closed, Black students integrated into white schools, but Black teachers did not. Other scholars focus on contemporary factors to understand attrition for Black teachers. They argue that they are dissatisfied because of issues like low salaries, little classroom autonomy, and a lack of involvement in school decision-making. Yet most interesting about these studies is the assumption that when Black teachers leave, they leave as career changers. See, it's this assumption, Black teachers as career changers, that was central to my dissertation study. Scholars continue to overlook a population of Black teachers like me, those who left schools in the U.S. to teach in schools in other countries. After teaching for 2 years in Illinois, I taught in Morocco and the United Arab Emirates, but there is no statistical data about American teachers who teach abroad. Therefore, I questioned, what can we learn about retaining Black teachers by examining those who remained in the profession but left the country to do so? I wanted to understand how their identities and the affective dimensions of their lives influenced their decisions to leave schools in the U.S. Findings from my study suggest that how Black teachers feel about their racialized, gendered, and class lives is pertinent to their transnational migration decisions. When reflecting on their lives as teachers in the U.S., they express quotes like, "I had to keep myself from adopting those kids. There were about 6 student funerals, but I only went to 3. I had to work 3 jobs to afford my adjustable rate mortgage." Imagine the affective dimensions of these sentiments, the exhaustion, the fatigue, the resentment. These are the emotional collisions that result when Black teachers' identities intersect with their lived experiences. These complex emotions push them, not out of the profession, but to teaching positions in other countries. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, Tiffany!
Yes.
Wonderful! Amazing!
Yes.
Well done!
Go, girl.
Woo!
Nice
Good
job.
job!
Awesome. Thanks for everybody for doing that. That's great. Great job, Tiffany. We'll give the judges about a minute and a half or so to write down their scores for you. Our next presenter is Ann Williams-Wengard from the Department of Family Social Science.
Individuals who experience schizophrenia live on average of 10 to 15 years less than those individuals without the illness. In addition, we know that for people who have schizophrenia, their risk of an unnatural death, something like an accident or suicide, can be dramatically reduced when we include family members in their mental health treatment. Unfortunately, engaging family members in mental health treatment and helping them stay connected to their loved one is far from simple. For background, schizophrenia is characterized by psychosis. Psychosis means that a person might hear voices or sounds that others can't hear, or see things someone else can't see, or they might have fixed beliefs or ideas not based in reality, such as believing that someone is trying to follow you or harm you. I know from my many years of experience in the mental health treatment world that this experience is unexpected and terrifying for the person with the psychosis. It's also overwhelming and surprising for the people around the person living with it, their parents. You see, psychosis happens in later adolescence or early adulthood when parents often feel that they know their child, and also when their child has the right to make their own decisions about their health care. But because psychosis impacts a person's thoughts, they may not even realize that what they're experiencing is related to an illness. Or worse yet, they may be fearful or angry at the very people trying to help them. So imagine that your adult child is experiencing psychosis. They have dramatically changed and no longer see you as someone they can trust. You're afraid for their safety and you want to get them help and treatment. But providers can't talk to you because they're an adult. Parents in this situation often feel that they have lost their child as they knew them to be prior to the psychosis. And this grief is only magnified by being excluded from their treatment. In my research, I interviewed and surveyed parents of adults experiencing psychosis. I found that they the parents experience overwhelming sadness and uncertainty about how to stay connected to their child and their role in their child's life, including their treatment. What I learned in my research also is that parents are experiencing this uncertainty and sadness alone. Because we know that people with psychosis will have better outcomes when family is engaged in their treatment, and we know that parents are struggling with sadness and uncertainty, we must identify better interventions to help parents stay supported and connected to their children. I believe that my research provides a foundation for better ways to support parents of adult children experiencing psychosis. The lives of people living with psychosis may depend on it. Thank you.
Way to go, Anne! Way to go!
Great job, Anne. Thank you. Our next presenter is Brooke Wagner from the School of Kinesiology.
I experienced weight stigma all through childhood. I was bullied for it. I was called fat all the time and told that no boys would like me. You used to be super skinny. You were like a model. What happened? Are you sure you want to eat that? What size are you now? Believe it or not, these are real experiences that my participants have had with what is termed weight stigma, which occurs when a person is socially rejected or seen as less of a person due to their weight, and nearly 40% of the population has experienced some form of weight stigma in their life. Unfortunately, current research suggests that being subject to weight stigma experiences, similar to the examples I shared earlier, may lead to engaging in more negative health behaviors related to diet and weight management, and maybe even physical activity. Now put yourself in their shoes and imagine that similar comments were made to you in fitness spaces, such as gyms and fitness centers. How would you respond? Would you become more physically active as a result? Or would you become less active and avoid these spaces altogether? Physical activity is one of the most influential and adaptable behaviors that benefits every single one of us to reduce our disease risk regardless of weight status. But only 24% of US adults meet the minimum physical activity recommendations. So to shame anyone in spaces like gyms and fitness centers in which people are making positive choices for their health is not only a potential detriment to their mental and emotional well-being, but it also jeopardizes their willingness to continue these behaviors. However, the evidence around weight stigma in fitness spaces and its impact on physical activity is still very limited. This is why, in my research, I used a mixed methods approach to address this significant gap, specifically to understand just what kinds of experiences are occurring here and how these experiences might ultimately impact physical activity levels and attitudes toward fitness spaces. So 214 adults in the US were surveyed on their physical activity behaviors and levels of weight stigma to quantify the impact of fitness center stigma on physical activity, and individual qualitative interviews with 8 participants followed. So far, my data has revealed lower physical activity is associated with experiencing weight stigma in fitness spaces, and I'm continuing to review and explore the qualitative data that I've collected to better understand participant experiences and their perceived impact. It is my mission that with a better understanding of the results of my research, that I can better inform educators, peers, health and fitness professionals, and all people that utilize fitness spaces about the negative impact that these comments and acts towards individuals can have. All people deserve a welcoming and safe space to engage in physical activity in order to improve their health, and we need to do better at providing just that. Thank you.
Go, Brooke!
Good job, Brooke.
Nice job.
Good job. Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Brooke. Our next presenter is Peng Chazhong from the Department of Educational Psychology.
A diagnosis of autism can provide validation, a starting point for seeking answers, an identity, and connection to the autistic community. It can also open the doors to supports and services, things like special education, occupational and speech therapy, and behavioral intervention. Receiving these services at any time in life is amazing. Receiving these services in the toddler years, when brain development is most robust, is even more amazing. 90% of brain growth happens before kindergarten, and studies show receiving early, intensive intervention can improve long-term outcomes. And because a diagnosis of autism is often needed to receive services, it is exceptionally important that we identify autism early. The good news is we can. We can reliably diagnose autism by age 2, The bad news is the national average age of diagnosis is still after 4. And for children of color, it's likely even later. In fact, 1 to 2 years later than non-Latino white children. Now remember, late diagnosis means late services. And if children of color are receiving later diagnosis, which can also mean disparities in long-term outcomes. And this is why it is crucial that we figure out how to diagnose autism earlier, especially in children of color. And parents are often the ones navigating the diagnostic process, so I see them as a key starting point. And right now, parents of color are operating in a process that better meets the needs of white middle-class English-speaking families. Healthcare providers are disproportionately white. Most autism information is in English. Screening tools, they work better with white English-speaking children. And most autism research has looked at white middle-class English-speaking participants. This is why my research seeks to understand Hmong parents' perceptions of autism and their experiences in the diagnostic process. In comparison to the general US population, the Hmong community is more likely to be English language learners, to have lower educational attainment, to live in poverty, and to have public versus private health insurance. Although my community is particularly vulnerable to inequities in diagnosis, we have received almost no attention in autism research. My survey study asks 35 Hmong parents about barriers and support to getting their child diagnosed, their beliefs about autism and the importance of a diagnosis and services, and how and where they get information on autism. My hope is that this knowledge will inform changes to the current diagnostic process and improve age of diagnosis for Hmong children. Thank you.
Woo! Woo! Good job, Pei.
Yay.
Oh,
Good job.
Great job, Pang. All right. Our final presenter for today is Samantha LeBoeuf from the Department of Family Social Science.
Think back to your first day of college. I will never forget that day. Trying to find all of my classes, wondering, what is the syllabus? What are office hours? Thinking, wow, everyone here seems so much smarter than me. Maybe I made a mistake, or maybe the university did in letting me in here. Then I went to a session that was just for first-gen students. The presenter came on stage and said that lower income first-gen students are disadvantaged, not only by our parents' lack of experience with college, but by other characteristics that had constrained our educational opportunities. I didn't feel constrained or disadvantaged, but the university just told me I was. That's what really put me at a disadvantage. That was in 2012. Flash forward to 2022, and the research on first-generation college students has remained largely unchanged. It suggests that because neither of their parents obtained a 4-year college degree, that these students begin college at a deficit, ignoring the many strengths and resources that first-gen students bring with them to college, including their families. This deficit approach can be detrimental to first-gen student retention, degree completion, and life satisfaction during college. During the 2015-2016 academic year, 56% of all US undergraduates were first-generation college students. But first-gen students are 5 times more likely to drop out of college after their first year compared to their peers. However, research has found that families are an important source of support and motivation for students to get to and through college. That is why in my research, I'm going to survey first-generation college students and their families from across the country at 2 time points, once after the completion of their senior year in college, and again after they've graduated. The goal of this research is to understand which family members first-gen students are turning to for support, and to explore how these support systems impact student well-being, both during and after college. When we don't support students in their well-being, they end up not seeing the possibilities and dropping out. This means that we miss out on leaders and scholars who could become doctors, innovators, and give back to their communities. When we truly commit to first-gen student success, we use research to develop resources. We modify university bridge programs to engage families, and we identify critical intervention points that contribute to improving the first-gen college experience, and ultimately, student success. Because first-generation college students succeed because of their family backgrounds and diversity, not despite them. Thank you.
Good job, Sam.
Way to go, Samantha!
Great job, Samantha. Thank you so much. Okay, while the judges are putting their numbers together here, we are going to take a 5-minute intermission. We're back. Hopefully you had a nice little intermission. So we're ready to announce the winners. Are y'all excited?
Yes.
Good. Before we do that, just let's give everybody a round of applause. Because I mean, awesome. These were so good, right? And it was really hard to decide. So, thank you all. I also want to acknowledge a couple people. I definitely want to acknowledge Shay Mua, who did the timekeeping, which was fantastic, and also wanted to acknowledge Melissa, who is kind of behind the scenes, being my tech person. I don't know what I would have done without her. I probably would have had my email up the whole time, and if she would have told me. So I really appreciate it. I'm so glad she was here. Without further ado, let's start with the People's Choice. Our People's Choice winner is Tiffany. Tiffany Smith. Yeah.
Go, girl.
Yeah, very exciting.
Woo. Woo.
All right, let's go to our second place. Our second place winner gets $500, as does our People's Choice winner. Second place winner, Tiffany Michelle Smith. Yay! You can cheer if you want.
Yay. Good job, Tiffany.
Yay! Way to go. Congrats.
All right. Our winner is Peng Chajong is our winner. Nice job, Peng. I can't find her in the sea of people, but she's great job. Very cool. Really great job, everybody. We've been doing this since 2016. This is my seventh year, is it? That I've been doing this. And it's just every year. There she is. Hi, Peng. I see you. Congratulations. It's so great to see this every year. We have amazing students that are doing such great things, and it's wonderful seeing it. So congratulations to everybody who participated and to the winners. Thank you all so much for being here. Hopefully we'll be able to do this in person next year. We've done this the last 2 years. It's been great, but I'm ready to get in front of people again and really get the spirit of the event. But you all definitely brought the spirit today. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you next year.